Hi guys, and welcome to this episode of the Happy Knitting Podcast. My name is Julia and I'm coming to you from the UK, and today is Sunday the 20th of August 2023. I'm so glad you're joining me today on a day in which my voice is not great, to be honest. I had strep last week and I still sort of have it, I guess. So I've decided to film anyways. I'm hoping it'll be a quick one. I just wanted to quickly update you on some projects, some new cast-ons, and have a bit of a live and podcast update towards the end of the episode. So yeah, if you're watching for the first time, welcome, and if you are coming back, thank you so much for being a regular viewer of this podcast. So, spoiler alert, I didn't finish anything. Instead of finishing any of my projects, I've just been casting on everything. So I'm not sure if I talked about this last episode, but I was really inspired to knit some sort of quick projects. I needed some palette cleansers because I feel like I've been working on a lot of big projects, like the shawl that I knit for ages, the brioche shawl. I have a couple of garments, all of which are on small needles and thin yarn. I have my Islander, which I'll talk about in a second, which is taking forever. Like, I just needed some quick wins, and recently, like, everything has been quite stressful, which I'll go into later. So I feel like I've sort of lost my knitting mojo for a bit. I wasn't really super excited about anything, which also always for me is a stress symptom. So when I saw that Stephen West of West Knits came up with a new sort of pattern collection to go up with his new line of yarn, or his new colors of yarns, I decided to buy the collection. So he came out with the Woolly Waffles collection, I believe it's called, and first I only wanted to buy the hat pattern because it's really, really fun. Like, it's very, very simple, but essentially it is a hat. You start here, you knit a hat as you usually would towards the crown, which I think the crown is quite pretty. It's very simple, very effective. And it's just got this really sort of fun waffle texture. And then you pick up the stitches to knit a stockinette lining. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So either you will fold this in and it'll be a lining on the inside, or of course you can fold it in the other way and have either you can have a stockinette hat with a waffle stitch brim, or you can just fold it in completely and have the sort of cozy waffle texture on the inside and just a very sort of plain hat once this is finished, obviously. So I was going to buy just the hat, but the collection is actually, I think, quite affordable. At least it was when I bought it, because I think they had like an introductory price. So because I really actually like the look of the waffle sweater as well, I decided to buy the whole collection, and I have the yarn. I didn't bring it to show you, sorry, but I have the yarn to knit myself a yellow Rowan felted tweed waffles sweater, and I have started the hat, and I'm also quite keen on one of the shawls that they have. So all this to say, I cast on this hat. For this, I used leftovers from my yarn that I used for my Pearl Soho Prism blanket. So this is Pearl Soho Good Wool. I don't know the colorway names, I'm sorry. But I started with this sort of light pink for the waffle portion, and then I'm just using a light gray for the inside. And I think it'll be really versatile. Like, I think the waffle texture actually looks really cool, so I can have a pink hat, or if I'm feeling more serious, I can just fold it in and have a sort of plain stockinette light gray hat, which will go with literally everything. So I'm really, really excited about this. The only thing I will say is it's a very simple stitch. It's very affordable. I just wonder why he didn't give us a few sizes. Like, it is literally one size with a stitch that is divisible by four. A four stitch repeat. Like, he could have made a kid size, and like it would have been so simple. And yes, it is very, very simple to then, you know, make up your own numbers and knit a different size, but I feel like he could have included it. But that's just me being very picky, because of course my toddler wants one too. And this is actually really good because it's so stretchy. I think this would be a great gift knit because this fits me and it also kind of fits my toddler. Obviously for his, I did make a smaller size, but you could put this on a child, I think, and it would still fit. Like, it's just a bit of a roomier fit because the pattern itself is really sort of stretchy in all ways. So yeah, I made this for myself or started this for myself, and of course Toddler wants one too. And he said he wanted one in pink and yellow, which is fine. But in the end, I think what I'm going to be doing, I decided it doesn't really need the lining. Like, the lining is cool, it's a cool feature, but if I make many of these hats, because of the sort of pattern structure, it doesn't roll, because it's not a rib, but it's a texture that is basically, it's not going to go anywhere. It looked really cool without the lining on already. So I've decided to knit his without a lining. And, oh no, I've got a big tangle here. Where did my yarn go? That's what I get for recording twice. I am using this yarn, which I hope I don't run out. I had way more of this yarn, but it was this is hedgehog fibers in a club colorway. This is like yellow and pink. And I've kept this for years and years and years, only to find out that was really, really tangled. So a big chunk of the yarn I gave to my son to play with, because it was so tangled. I was never going to untangle it, and now I'm definitely even less likely to untangle it, because he's been like dragging like this mountain of yarn all over the house. But I think I should have enough, and if not, I'll just use something else for the crown. And I'm holding this double with, I don't know why I have such a tangle here. This is such a mess. This is some Drops Baby Merino, possibly Baby Merino Light. This is left over from the blanket that I made for my son last year, which is the blanket that he uses every night in his bed. So this is a superwash wool. And holding these together makes for such a lovely, cozy, squishy yarn. It's really, really beautiful, because it is a DK weight pattern. I don't really have much DK weight in my life, and also my gauge tends to be very loose. So if I were to knit a DK weight, I would have to knit extremely tightly and size down like a million times, and it's just really annoying. So I'm holding 2 yarns double, which probably is more like a worsted weight, but because I had to make up the numbers for the kid size anyways, it didn't matter. So I just cast on, I think I started with 80 stitches yesterday and knit for a little bit, and it would have fit, but it was just a bit too big. So I ripped it out and restarted with 72 stitches or 68 stitches on a 3.75 millimeter needle. Again, just by the pattern, and then cast on a number that is divisible by 4. And I think it's really fun. And as you can see, there's no sort of ribbing or anything at the bottom, and it doesn't roll, it doesn't go anywhere. So I think what I'm going to do is, this one is going to be without a lining, because it's quite thick anyways. And then I can just make him multiples of these hats, because I think they're really, really fun. They're going to be great for like nursery and everything. I like him in colorful things. It's great for using up like random scraps of yarn. So I'm hoping I can knit him a couple of these hats, because I don't think any of his hats from last year really fit him anymore. And these are really, really fun. Like, I knit all of this yesterday. And again, it is very simple. You don't need to look at the pattern. The decreases are very simple. So yeah, I have 2 waffle hats now on the go. This is going to be mine, and this one is going to be his. So yeah, those are all the waffle hats. I think for mine I'm using a smaller needle. For mine I'm also using 3.75 millimeter needles. But this one is definitely less dense, because this is a sort of heavy sport weight yarn, whereas the other one is I think the Baby Merino might even be sport weight, and the hedgehog fibers is a thin fingering weight. So this one held together is definitely much thicker than this one, but I think both work, both give a really cool effect. So those are my waffle hats. I also very quickly will show you, I have been continuing on my Scandia sweater, which apparently is a tangle. But so many suggested last week when I mentioned my needle drama that of course I could just, swap out one tip for a smaller one and it would have been fine. It didn't occur to me. It makes total sense, but by the time I got all the comments, I had just bought another needle, and I also I used a different needle to just, get through the part that I needed to get onto, and now I am using entirely different needles. I'm using metal needles now anyways, because the circumference of my sleeve is so small that I needed these tiny sort of circulars. These ones are the Chow Goose, which are my favorite of the tiny ones. And if it doesn't make any sense, this doesn't make any sense to you, watch last episode. Anyways, all this to say, I have worked on the sleeve. It doesn't look like much progress, but this sleeve, I think it needs about, because it is a dropped shoulder design, maybe 5 more centimeters, maybe 10 more centimeters, and then I'll be able to start the cuff. And yeah, then I'll do the other sleeve, and then I can finish the body. So not crazy amounts of progress, but I do promise I did work on this a fair bit. It's not super fast as it is fingering weight color work in the round on a sleeve. And for probably the 100th time, the yarns that I'm using is JC Rennie, which is a cone of super soft in their Slumber colorway, and New Lanark Spinning Mill in their full ply colorway Limestone. There you go. Lastly, I got new yarn, and I'll go into this later, but essentially, like, all my plans of my entire life has sort of like jumbled around and changed a little bit because I got a new job, and I'm starting a new job in 3 weeks, which is really exciting and scary. And on the day that I got my new job, I decided to treat myself to some celebratory yarn. And I basically went on Pearl Soho's page because I love Pearl Soho. I'm, again, not sponsored by them. And they had a sale going, and I really like their patterns. I'm more and more drawn to their patterns. A lot of them are quite simple but very effective, and they play a lot with colors and with texture and mixing different yarns and different fibers. So things that I don't always do. Sorry, my voice is not getting any better. And so I decided, I was basically thinking, what can I knit that, because I will be commuting into London once a week. I will be required to wear probably more businessy clothes. Who knows how fancy they'll be, but it'll be more sort of, I don't want to say corporate because I hate corporate, but it'll be more like an office-based job. So I was thinking at things that I could especially like use over winter to go with everything, and I decided to buy yarn for 2 sort of massive scarves / shawls. So one of them I've put away. I will show it to you when I knit it. And for the other one, I chose to do the Value Study scarf, which is by Pearl Soho. It's a free pattern, you can look it up, so I'm not giving away anything. And they have like a skinny version, a wide version, and the idea is that it's a gradient shawl, like a very wide scarf. And you use this gradient, which is all natural colored cotton alpaca. So this is their sweetgrass base. So it's like a very, very subtle gradient. Then you use that with 2 skeins of linen quill in like a very colorful pop. And then the entire scarf is like a very, very slow fade. It's very subtle, it's very cool. And I knew I had some linen quill in stash, so I actually had the linen quill already. And this is the colorway Coral. No, it's called Peachy Pink. And it always shows up funny. It's a bit darker in real life. Hang on, let's see. What can I make? It looks very, very... It is bright, but it's not like fluorescent bright. And I have started on my wrap. So this is the idea. So essentially what you're doing is you're knitting 2-color garter stitch, which means, annoyingly, every second row is a purl row, because you keep changing colors and slipping your yarns, your shawl back and forth on the needles, which is why I have this on very short needles, and I'm also, of course, in the middle of a row. But, as you probably cannot tell, I'm already into my 2nd color of my fade, so it is very, very subtle, and it's just gonna be this, like, slightly faded coral thing, and I think it'll be really elegant. I'm really, really excited about this. Like, look at this with my black top. I think it already looks really good. So this is a bit of a labor of love, I will be honest. When I started, I was like, oh god, what have I gotten myself into? Because again, it is very like straightforward and very plain, but also you need to be paying attention. And it's got this edging, which again is very simple, but kind of annoying. Like it took me a while to get it because you basically have a slip stitch edge only in one color, but then you wrap your yarn in a certain way to sort of get a good result and make it like the way it should be, like make it a really finished edge. Like this looks almost like a little bit like a woven effect. So it took me a while and like reading a couple of like additional comments and project pages and so on to figure it all out. But now that I'm going with it, I'm actually really enjoying it, and it's really interesting combining this cotton alpaca yarn with the linen quill, which again is a funky mix. What is the linen quill? This is a sweetgrass, 65% cotton, 35% alpaca. And maybe I don't have a linen quill. Oh, I do. Linen quill is 50% Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. So yeah, it is really interesting. I'm enjoying their sort of play with different bases a lot. And my second project that I bought yarn for is a scarf that also uses linen quill and a 100% super soft merino singles yarn. And again, I think that'll be quite interesting. So, sorry, I keep on drinking because my voice is just going. But yeah, this is what I'm making. I'm really, really enjoying it. And the good thing is, this sweetgrass yarn is not super affordable because you need, it comes in 100 gram skeins. So you need to buy like 5 100 gram skeins of yarn just for the contrast. But I'm already finished with the first color and I've barely used any, so I can make multiple of these scarves, which also made me decide to get this yarn. Or obviously I could make something else, but I reckon if I wanted to, I could probably do like 3 value study scarves with all of this yarn. Like you can tell, this is a full 100 gram and this is what I have left over, so it's a massive amount of yarn left. And again, you just need 2 skeins of yarn, like fingering weight, to pair it with. So I could potentially knit many of these scarves. I could knit other things. If I do make this again a second time, I might think about doing an I-cord edge, because I think that in one color could also be really cool and also just make it less fiddly. But I do like the look. I don't know. But yeah, that is my value study scarf by Pearl Soho, which is a free pattern on Ravelry and on their webpage. And I should say, because again, I never get gauge with their patterns. I tend to be a loose knitter anyways, but with their patterns, it's always like miles off. So I basically just did the math based on the gauge that I was getting with 3.25 millimeter needles, I think. Yes. And so I did the math and I cast on less stitches. So I think instead of something like 85 stitches, I cast on 70 or 75. And now I'm getting essentially the same width as I should be getting if I had their gauge. And obviously it's a little bit faster. But it's still not a fast project because it is, you know, small needles, fingering weight yarn, a fair amount of purling and switching colors. But yeah, I really like it. And then lastly, I have been crocheting on my Fireside blanket. So I want to say my second row, but the row with the big squares is done, and I have now started my third rows, which is all these small squares again. But you can see where this is going, and I've just been doing like 1 or 2 squares at a time. I haven't been super obsessed with it. I've just been working on it every now and then. And this, of course, is the Fireside blanket by Attic24. With the kit that comes using this Stylecraft heathered yarn. I always forget the name. It's like Mountain Heather or something. It's like these shades that they do have like multiple colors in it. It's a really cool sort of color palette, and I am essentially doing exactly what the pattern tells me to do. I'm using the colors. The only thing is I went down a hook size, so I went down to a 4mm hook because that works for me, and that again, I don't know if it's called gauge in crochet, but that gave me the square size that I'm supposed to be getting in order for like the yarn requirements and all of that to work. So yeah, that's where I am with my Fireside blanket. In terms of acquisitions, as I said, I did buy some celebratory yarn. So I bought some Post Soho, which some of it is my stash, some of it I'm obviously knitting on already. And I also bought myself some more Rowan felted tweed because I really enjoyed that yarn when I worked with it and made that cardigan. So I bought myself a yellow color, which I think strangely is called Mineral, to make a tweedy waffles sweater. I hope I can like manage with gauge or adjust or something, but I think it should be fine. And I also got myself a very dark navy and light gray to make myself a striped sweater. So I'm not 100% decided on which pattern I'm going to go for, but I think that'll be a good basic. And again, I am sort of starting to think about projects that I could possibly combine to wear to work as well. Obviously that will depend a lot on, like, once I get there, how does everyone else dress, and like what do I feel comfortable wearing, what's practical. Like, I just need to get into work and see how it all fits, and then I think I can make more knitting plans. But it's nice to be possibly planning a bit around like what can I wear to work, because yes, I am going to obviously, you know, if I can integrate knitwear into my wardrobe, I definitely will. Alright, so basically that is it for the yarny content, and if you do want to stick around, I'm just going to waffle a little bit about my personal life. 100% fine if you don't want to stick around for that, but if you do, yeah. Like I mentioned, there has been a lot going on. There's been a lot going on in the background. Obviously my son is, he's in nursery now, but he'll like proper start nursery in September, which works out perfectly. It'll all be fine. So I have been secretly, you know, applying and taking interviews and all of that stuff. And I've also been designing, because for a while the plan was very different. For a while my plan was to design. And so I've, you know, started test knit, and I've got a couple of designs going, and then basically out of the blue this job came along and everything shifted, and my poor test knitters just had to go along with it. And yeah, now I'm basically like a little bit stuck, because all of my attention has been on, you know, getting my life sorted so I can start my new job in 3 weeks, which will be part-time, but still, like, it'll be a big change for us. And we don't have, you know, we don't have grandparents around, we don't have any like family or anyone here to sort of make that transition easier. But what I will do is, I think soon, possibly next couple of weeks, I will release the pattern that is all like done and test knit and photographed. Like, it's basically ready to go. So I think I'm going to release that, and then everything else I have just put on hold because I just didn't have the brain space and or time to do it. So I have a couple of things that I've like worked out the math for and like written part of it, and I've got the yarn for one thing ready, but there is no capacity right now to do it. And we have a couple of other things going on as well because it's summer. Like, I think I have 3 more weeks of freedom, and one of those weeks we're gonna get a new boiler, which means we're gonna have like handy people in the house for 4 days straight and no hot water and a toddler running around and all that. And then we have my parents coming over, and life just happens. I didn't plan to be sick this week, but that happened. So yeah, it feels weird. Like, I wanted to do this design thing like 100%, and now I've basically been doing it like 20%, which I don't want to do. But it feels stupid not to release a pattern that I think personally is quite pretty, and it's ready to go, and it's gonna be autumnal, so it'll work. So yeah, that's like another thing that was going on in the background, and I was doing a fair amount of secret knitting, which I should show to you sometime soon. But yeah, breathe. New job, possible design. Not really sure where my life is going at the moment. Everything just shifted very quickly in the last couple of weeks. But yeah, so that's that. Cat is out of the bag, so to speak. All of that has meant that my knitting motivation has sort of just dived. And, you know, honestly, even my podcasting motivation isn't super high at the moment. Not because I don't enjoy it, but because, you know, the whole knitting and designing and podcasting sphere is very, very different to the whole corporate job and all of that side of my life. And then obviously I have the whole, like, I have a kid and a family and a house and like all of that crap. Like, sorry for swearing. It's a lot of different things to juggle. And I don't like doing things half-heartedly, and at the moment I just don't know how I'm going to juggle all of it, if I'm being quite honest. I know I'm going to keep knitting because I love knitting. I love knitting so much, and I will always be knitting. It just sort of depends, like, if I have the time and the energy to podcast, especially in the first couple of like weeks and months until I'm assuming it'll all settle down and it'll be fine. But I don't really know where I'm going with this. Like, my family definitely has to come first. My job has to come first. And usually I will put my own like knitting for pleasure before all the like social media, podcast, all of that. So all that to say, we'll need to see how it goes. Honestly, I just don't really know. I don't want to put more pressure on myself than I already do, and trust me, I do a lot of that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. It's gonna be a big shift, but I'm hoping it'll be like one big sort of transition, and then we'll find a new normal, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll see how the toddler copes, and how much time I'll have on the weekend to do this sort of thing, and yeah. So there you go. I mean, I came back with my podcast like guns blazing, and I feel like I did really good for a couple of months, and now we'll just have to see. And I'm sure you guys will understand, because you guys are generally very sort of lovely and understanding people. Yeah. Life just sometimes throws you a curveball, and I am actually quite excited about this one. It'll be a big change, but I'm also very, very excited about it. It also means I'll be commuting into London, and hopefully maybe I can, you know, spend some time there and do some fun things, and, you know, have some time without a babbling 2-year-old by my side. So that'll be quite good. In other news, the toddler is turning 3 next week, which is crazy. He's been like birthday obsessed for like the last month, so we're doing like a party and a couple of things, and again, that's taking up some brain space. And also, I can't believe I'm going to have a 3-year-old. Like, how crazy is that? We're also coming up to our 3-year UK anniversary, which again, like, how did that happen? I have no idea. So yeah, all of that to say, there's a lot going on, but it's also really, most of it is really fun. The house part is not very fun at the moment. I mentioned our big rendering saga, and I thought we got the rendering done, we paid for it, it was all good, except it cracked. Because the weather seems to be never right for rendering, and apparently, because for once it wasn't raining, it was too warm, so now our rendering has to be fixed again, and then we can hopefully paint it, and so on. It's just a never-ending story. Like, I never want to hear the word render again in my entire life. Like I said, we're getting a boiler and like our entire heating system redone 10 days, which is going to be so annoying, but hopefully that'll mean that by the time autumn rolls around, which it has been quite autumnal here, we'll finally have like functioning heating, because our heating did work, but it didn't work very well, and it was very inefficient. And if you're in the UK or probably anywhere in the world, energy prices are still quite high, so the fact that our thermostat wouldn't turn off overnight and like it was either freezing or really warm was really annoying. So hopefully all of that will be solved soon, and of course our boiler is in the wrong place, so it needs to be moved, and our entire house needs to be turned upside down, and I'm sure it's going to be an absolute nightmare, but that's happening very soon. Also, this room that I'm in right now, which is my attic, it's our loft, my Yarny attic is going to turn into a Yarny office. So we have 2 IKEA deliveries coming, and I have already shuffled some things around because I'm going to set up like a desk and everything, like, you know, working stuff in here. So I'm quite excited about that. This has always been sort of the last space that we thought of in terms of making it pretty, because if you don't know, we bought this house in February, and like most of like the downstairs and my son's room and all of like my husband's office is really beautiful, like we've decorated it, but this room has always been sort of the last one on our list. And we're still not going to do anything fancy. Like, in a perfect life, I would like to paint it, put some wallpaper in, possibly change the flooring, but we're just gonna leave it for now. But at least I'm gonna have some nice furniture, and I'm like making it my space, which I'm really excited about, because most of like our rooms, obviously, like I still put my very personal touch on it, but I'm always like, I have to agree with Kai on what lamps we want and what we want, but this is mine. So I was like, I'm going to buy the lamp that you think is really ugly, and it's going to be my office, it's going to be my space, and it's going to be just for me. So I'm actually really excited, and I'll probably take some photos or something once it's all done. And I'll still keep this couch in my knitting space because I definitely want it to be both, and I'm actually really excited. So yeah, and now I'm just waffling on about my life, but that is some of the stuff that has been going on for the last like couple of months. And yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have no idea. We'll see what happens. And with that, I think I'll let you guys go back to your regular lives. I want to do all the knitting today because I feel like I haven't really been knitting that much. My son has been crazy attached to me, which is hard, and also sometimes makes me, stay downstairs rather than go upstairs and knit. And today is the day. It's already like 2 o'clock, but I just want to spend the rest of my afternoon crafting my little heart art, and I'm really, really excited about it. As you can tell probably from my hats and all of that, my knitting mojo is definitely back. I've also been sorting through my stash just a little bit. And I found a couple of like little bits and pieces that I would like to turn into toddler things and like use up some scraps. I'm all about the like small projects at the moment, so I think that's a good sign. I think I just want to get my crafting out, and I am very, very excited about it. Alright, if you stuck around until now, thank you so much for watching my podcast. I hope my voice was okay. I am planning to be back with you next weekend and probably the weekend after, and then after that we'll just have to see what happens, but who knows, might be really easy. Who knows? Oh yeah, we also booked our plane tickets to Germany over Christmas. Yes, I'm using the Christmas word. So that'll be my first time in a year that I'll be back in Germany, which will also be quite exciting in terms, obviously in terms of being in Germany and seeing family and having Christmas, but also I haven't been in a German yarn store in a year, and I do miss my German wools every now and then. I am very used to just buying stuff from, like, using stuff from the UK or whatever is accessible here, because Brexit is really annoying. But yeah, it'll be nice to be back and possibly visit a yarn store or two as well. Anyways, I will now let you go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope all of you are healthy and happy and safe and have some lovely yarn to play with, whether you're crocheting or knitting or doing some other kind of craft. I will see you very, very soon. Thank you for watching. Happy knitting. Bye!